You're with the Breaker-Leggers, and we are at the Charing Cross Theatre tonight to see the UK premiere of a musical that's been hanging around for 22 years before making its way across the Atlantic, and that musical is
Violet.
So stick around to find out how many stars and whether it's break a leg or
leg it.
Well done, that's the one. So you're probably wondering who the hell this is. This is the lovely composer, lyricist extraordinaire,
if you like,
Cole Malloy.
Hi.
Great friend of the show, great friend of ours, and he's joining us tonight because Nathan is jet-setting around the country on business.
It's a fine
Because
life.
he's just a high-flying exec nowadays.
Yeah.
We are at Charing Cross Theatre to see Violet. Now, it's based on a short story called
The Ugliest Pilgrim.
The Ugliest Pilgrim.
By, Doris Betts.
Yes, and the musical has music by Janine Tesori. She's doing well, having 2 shows in London right now.
Oh, well, the one's just a 2-minute walk down the road.
2-minute walk down the road for Caroline or Change. She also did Shrek and Fun Home that had its UK premiere here just last year. Book and lyrics by Brian Crawley. Now, Violet is set in 1964. Tells the story of Violet, a young woman facially disfigured as a child who uses her life saving to travel across America in search of a miracle. Premiered in
1997.
Well done! And it won the Drama Critics Award for Best New Musical at that time. Now, Violet in that production was played by Lauren Ward, who is also currently here in Caroline or Change. There's a lot of cross-fertilising. It had a new production in 2014 on Broadway with Sutton Foster in the lead, which was nominated for
4 Tony Awards?
and won none at all, unfortunately. But our Violet in this production is Kaiser Hammerland, who was recently Big Allison in
Fun Home.
Fun Home. Did you see Fun Home?
I did.
Did you like Fun Home?
I did very much. I saw it on Broadway as well. It was brilliant.
Well, and the music particularly?
I think so, yeah. I'm a big fan of Janine Tesori. She likes her muted colours,
Yes.
muted sounds, and I think we're in store for that tonight.
Well, I'm glad that you know more about sort of music terminology than I do. So, because you're a composer, so you'll be looking at this in a totally different way, I think, than me, perhaps. This London premiere is being directed by Shuntaro Fujita, and it's 100 minutes long with no interval. So we're steaming through, we're getting on that bus across America with Violet at 100 miles an hour
Or something like that.
for 100 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to head inside. There'll be no interval breakdown because
No.
there's no bloody interval.
No.
But we'll catch up with you and to let you know what we think.
Yes.
Well, we've travelled on quite the journey by Greyhound bus, and we've arrived at the end of Violet.
Back where we started.
Back where we started. As guest leg, I think I should let you go first. What did you make of that?
I really enjoyed it. It was, well, I think, let's not be around the bush, I'm going to gush a little bit. It was actually great. Musically, I think it's probably Janine at one of her bests. It was every kind of American song under the sun. It was a little bit like an American songbook. We had bits of bluegrass, bits of gospel, bits of
Bluesy.
Yeah, all of those kinds of things.
Jazz-esque.
Yeah, rhythm and blues. And it was really effective. It's kind of, the general conceit is this woman who is disfigured who gets on a bus to try and find someone who will save her, a televangelist. And her daydreams were kind of musicalized by all these different disparate song styles, and it was really effective, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that having sort of a Janine Tesori is clearly a very talented person with a lot of musical influence and ability at her fingertips. And I think to chart a journey, not only geographically but emotionally for Violet, by bringing those types of music into play, was an absolute joy to behold. You know, it was. Music is so emotive, and I think here is used so effectively. I would agree with you. It's probably my favourite Tesori.
Wow.
And I've seen quite a lot of them. Shrek, Caroline, Fun Home. Never seen Millie, although you have, haven't you? But no, I'm just in awe of the ability, and when it's told with such a powerful story, that is completely accessible. I say there are other musicals where I find I struggle to relate because the story is so far removed from my own experience. But the themes in this of acceptance and self-worth and inclusivity and desperation are just things that I think a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah, I think she really is a kind of chameleon-like composer. She really inhabits the style. Inhabits rather than inhibits, sorry.
She puts a stop to that style.
She inhabits the style she's writing in, and so it almost feels like you're just listening to the songs that they would ordinarily play on the radio rather than Janine Tesori's songs, as it were. Which makes it more effective more than anything, rather than I'm listening to Janine Tesori write this kind of song.
No, because you say that accessibility is really... I mean, it's commercial in a non-commercial sense, though, because you don't expect to hear it in this sort of an environment, I think, which is quite difficult, but it's not at all alienating. So I would encourage people to come to see this that maybe think that the story's not for them or musical theatre isn't for them, because you will recognise it.
Absolutely.
You will absolutely recognise it. Let's move on to some of the creatives. So let's move on to the cast, I think, first. I thought that, without exception, they were all exceptional.
They were,
Without exceptionally exceptional. Wow.
Quite the wordsmith.
Oh, no, just. In particular, I mean, if we had to call people out, I would say Jay Marsh in the role as Flick.
Yep.
A beautiful voice and gave such a believable performance.
Absolutely.
What I liked about him most was his tone and his emotional connection with, I mean, not his own character per se, but the characters around him. It just always felt completely natural and believable.
Yeah. We can't forget to mention the racial undertones that were underpinning this show all the way through, as well as lots of what I didn't expect were things like female issues at the time, vanity, and then obviously taking place in the what we would call the red belt or the southern belt, with all the religious undertones as well. It felt very much of its time, but something that we could look at and observe. Not too strong.
And that's, I think, something else that is quite affecting is that it's not, in the grand scheme of things, that long ago. 1964, what's that, 40, 50 years ago? 60 years ago? What year are we in? God, but 50-ish years ago. And I'm surprised. I mean, we've come a long way, but also these things still happen. There are still TV evangelists. There are still promises of, things that we cannot know, and there are still people out there in desperate situations that are being taken advantage of, I think,
for sure,
by people, because they just, anything is better than the life that they're living at the moment. And we only need to look at America. I mean, we're currently in the middle of a Congress shutdown. And politically over there, it's an absolute state. And I was listening to the radio just on the way down, slight anecdote, to go off topic, about people working for the government full time and now struggling to feed themselves because they're not working.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Another thing is, there's liberal use of the N-word, and you mentioned those racial undertones, and they're still shocking. Even though it's period, I'm still shocked by it every single time, and I can't believe those things have ever happened, much less that they might still happen today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is a shock. Let's talk about some more performers. I think we should mention...
Yeah, sure. Janet
Mooney in the role of old lady / hotel hooker.
It's quite the
that's
multi-role.
It is, and that's going to look great on her
I can do both.
resume.
I could too.
But I thought she was brilliant.
Yeah, she was great. She did really well to try and kind of have that prim and proper character about herself when she was on the bus, and then she completely transformed into this hotel hooker of sorts. It wasn't for me.
Slightly cringy.
But I think...
but played well.
Absolutely.
She's made you feel something. What more could she want as an actress? Let's also talk about the enthusiasm of Danny Michaels as Billy Dean.
Absolutely. I think he really stood out for me in the tele-evangelical scene where he was, I don't know he was one of the kind of congregation,
sort of gospel choir boys.
And he was giving it his all.
Wasn't he just? He was like Book of Mormon. Well, we've stepped slightly closer to the theatres. We've been asked.
Cozy.
It's a bit cosy right here near the door, and also security got involved, which was very dramatic. I can't think of anything more stagey, to be honest, than a dramatic scene outside of the theatre. Also really loved Matt, I'm calling him Matt, it's Matthew in the programme, but first name basis, short and abbreviation, nicknames, Harv. Matthew Harvey, in the role of Monty, who was a great leading man, thoroughly believable. I see Les Mis under his credits, and I'm not surprised at all.
No.
I think he is a bit of a matinee idol.
Yeah, he was.
Also, and we must not forget Kaiser Harmarlund, who played Violet herself. She is exceptionally talented, at times reminding me a little bit of Reagan in The Exorcist.
Really?
Gotta say.
Okay,
A little bit.
I can buy that.
Can you see that?
Absolutely.
If ever they musicalise The Exorcist, because it's been on stage, it's only one step further to put a few tracks in, right?
Yeah,
A couple
and I
of
mean, with all the
numbers.
cross-fertilising that's been going on, why not, make it happen?
Why
Make it happen.
Why not make it happen? But no, I digress.
You do.
You're a fan anyway?
Absolutely. I think this show is... Violet is the central character and everyone else is surrounding her, and it's very kind of vignette-like, which goes in tandem with the music as well. We get all these disparate songs, and she's constantly daydreaming about her past life and where she's going, and she daydreams about what things might be like, and we're caught in this kind of whirlwind of different songs and different characters that kind of come and go. Some of them are really two-dimensional, but I think deliberately so in any case.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it makes her, I think, comparatively full-blooded.
I think they need to be two-dimensional in order for you to see her project onto them her insecurities and the part that they've played in her emotional life, not just her physical life.
Yeah.
The role of her father is a very interesting one, played by Kieran Crook, because he represents a lot of the men in her life, not just her father. I also liked I thought the lighting was quite exceptional at times too, with the sort of washed-out ghost-like look. To the older things that have happened in her life, like her past,
Sure.
changing that lighting state to reflect that, I thought was excellent.
I think we should also mention we've both been to this theatre on a number of occasions, and it's for the most part just been a Pross-Arch theatre. But I think it was you who were saying they've transformed this theatre for this production, so it's now traverse.
Yes.
And I think it works. I think it's so much better than what it used to be.
With a revolve in the centre as well, and this theatre is very much like watching something down a tunnel usually, but no, they've managed to bring the audience sort of right into it and really draw you in physically as well as emotionally in this lovely story. But yeah, you're right, something a bit different, and you would keep it like that presumably.
I think
for
so.
every production.
Yeah, why not?
Just whether it needs a revolve or not.
Yeah.
So that's a note from us to you guys at the Charing Cross. Keep it in, keep it in. Well, I bet you're wondering how many stars we're going to give this. So for Violet, playing here at the Charing Cross Theatre, we are going to give 4 stars for this one. A beautiful production of a great show. There are some limitations by the venue. It's very small, there's not a full orchestra, they're not out in front, and I think this reflects that slightly, but in terms of story and musicality and performances by and large, yeah, it's really edging towards that 5-star. Well, that's just what we think. What do you think?
Let us know in the comments below.
There you go, it's almost like he's done this before. We'd love to hear from you. We're the Breaker Leggers. We'll catch you again soon. Bye!